freshman All-American, Ole Miss cornerback Davison Igbinosun. I think I pronounced that right. If I didn't, I apologize. Commits to Ohio State on Tuesday afternoon. Fellas, we scheduled this video out actually on Monday, and we're going to talk about how thin the Buckeyes were at cornerback. And lo and behold, Tuesday afternoon, Ohio State lands one of the biggest transfer commitments of the entire transfer cycle in the entire country, Davison Igbinosun. This is a huge deal. Ohio State has, before Igbinosun committed, Ohio State had 6 scholarship cornerbacks yet again, and 5 of them would be there for the spring. And now you look at this Ohio State secondary who loses Ronnie Hickman, loses, almost lost Josh Proctor. He's back. You lose Cameron Brown. You lose J.K. Johnson. You lose Tanner McAllister. We've brought in the number 1 safety in the transfer portal from Syracuse, Jihad Carter. And then now you add Davison Igbinosun from Ole Miss. Yeah. This secondary is becoming better almost over lunch, Tim, because you visit over, this weekend. Now he's committed on Tuesday. Things are happening for this Ohio State secondary, and I think this is a huge pickup for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, man. As soon as I saw him visiting over the weekend, I went and watched the video. That's how messed up my life is, I guess. But this guy's big. I mean, I think he's got big-time potential. Let's put it that way. And I really like the way he moves. He fits the bill of what they want, in that regard. And I don't know. I think this is a major get. That's like, when everybody was judging the transfer portal for Ohio State like a week or 2 weeks ago, as we talked about it, I liked everybody they added. Could they have added a couple more or one more offensive lineman, maybe of higher repute than Victor Cutler? Yeah, possibly, but they got a guy who's on the rise, in my opinion, Victor Cutler. Same way with this young man, Igbinosun. I mean, he was fun to watch on video. I invite people to do that. But then on top of that, he's played, man, in the SEC, So what more do you need on your resume than that? And he's definitely fired up about coming to Ohio State, and he sees the opportunity. Obviously, I mean, you're automatically in the 3 deep, and he'll probably be in the running there for right out of the gate for a starting job, in my opinion. But I like. We'll get into the depth here in a minute, but I really like this. This is a huge pickup.
Yeah, Andy, it's one of those moves where you looked at this depth chart, and I did a depth chart projection, a January one that really means nothing, but it's fun to look at, and people seem to like reading those. That said Denzel Burke and Jordan Hancock were going to be the starting 2 cornerbacks. That could have been the case this year, this past year in 2022. Now you add Davison Igbinosun, who was a freshman All-American and started 10 games in the SEC West. I understand it was a down SEC, and I don't think that conference was where it should have been this year. But he started 10 games for a team that almost won 10 games and was a big part of that defense. Now you add him to the secondary, and you're looking at a really, really solid competition between Denzel Burke, Jordan Hancock, Davison Igbinosun, Jermaine Matthews, and Jair Brown. Throw Ryan Turner in there this spring. You've got a pretty good core of cornerbacks that you can choose from, maybe even rotate some of these guys as this unit goes from super thin to now a little deep.
Yeah, and Calvin Simpson-Hunt as well. It's a list. It's longer than
but he's not going to be here until June. I was more so talking about spring, right?
He's going to hit the ground running, though, I guarantee you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
He'll be there eventually. But, yes, exactly. And this is the 5th transfer edition now that Ohio State's had this cycle, which is really unheard of in the Ryan Day era or just any time since the transfer portal opened up for Ohio State. I think they had 8 total since it had opened, and now they've got 5 in this cycle. So they're clearly making a concerted effort to be more aggressive, which you have to do in college football nowadays. But yes, if you look at this pickup in particular, I mean, we talk about size. He's 6'2", 185 pounds. You look at some of the NFL guys that Ohio State had from the cornerback position. Jeff Okudah, 6'1", 205. Eli Apple, 6'1", 203. I'm not saying size is everything. Again, Denzel Ward was only 5'11", but it does help on the perimeter, guarding some of these bigger wide receivers that you'll see, or tight ends if you have to switch off of a guy. And so I think that'll come in handy. Also, just you look at his stats, it reminds me kind of the freshman year that Denzel Burke had, a little bit of a breakout season. And that comes in handy for 2 things. 1, it was impressive, but 2, we saw the season that Denzel Burke had kind of handicapped by injury as a sophomore. And so it's kind of cautionary tale that just because a player had a great freshman year doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have an awesome sophomore year. He could, but it's just something to watch out for. But yeah, in terms of his freshman year, Igbinosun had only gave up 25 receptions, 3 touchdowns allowed, 40 targets though, allowed 10.4 yards per reception. So pretty good snaps. He also lined up 58 times in the box. So again, some versatility there. I think you're getting a lot from this kind of guy. I think you just need to make sure that you're not asking too much of him. Just because he performed well as a freshman doesn't mean it's going to exactly translate into a breakout sophomore season as well. But I do think he has all the potential there, and this is a huge pickup for them, the transfer portal.
Boy, Andy, immediately go into that sophomore jinx scenario, right? Is that what you're talking about?
I mean, you just got to
work at it, that's for sure.
You got to be aware of it. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I would never wish that upon anyone. I'm just saying that just because a player has a great freshman year and the track record of that doesn't mean it's going to be that's your guy starting all 13, 15 games, however far you go. But it is depth, and he could be that guy.
Yeah.
Now, here's one thing that I think that is worth talking about. The Ole Miss On 3 website reported that Ole Miss was making a concerted effort to keep Igbinosun on the roster through its NIL collective, and he wanted to look elsewhere. Now, that is reporting from an On 3 website. I have not talked to those folks over there, but that is what they have reported. He visited Ohio State this weekend. There were talks of him potentially visiting Texas A&M, visiting Tennessee, visiting Michigan.
Yeah.
This is not one of those, I'm not going to shorthand what they did with Victor Cutler. I think it's a good move for them to bring him in, but this is not a under-the-radar transfer move that could add depth to this. Andy, you talk about how he started in the SEC as a freshman, and he's not going to be promised a starting position at Ohio State. That's simply not going to happen. But this is a splash by Ohio State. This isn't just another transfer decision. I think back to last year, a lot of folks on the Lettermen Lounge message board were very critical of the way Ohio State handled the transfer portal, by not adding Elias Ricks from LSU, who ended up at Alabama and had an okay season. There were fans that were angry that Ohio State wasn't more aggressive at the cornerback position in the transfer portal. So what does Ohio State do? They take a second-year defensive backs coach now in Tim Walton. Ryan Day goes to work. They host a splashy freshman All-American cornerback, and they land him. And that this is a big deal for the program to send the message to, they're not in the business of sending messages to fans, but it is a message to everyone that, hey, Ohio State's not just going to sit back with its roster if there's somebody in the portal they can add. Ohio State's going to be aggressive when it wants to and when it needs to be aggressive. I think this is the perfect time for Ohio State to be aggressive. You were thin at cornerback. You're not sure about the youth. You still haven't seen some of these guys play yet. Now you add somebody who's got the chops, who's played, when you need to be playing. I think back to the Alabama Ole Miss game. That was a close game, and you look out there and there he is. This is a splashy pickup for Ohio State, Tim, and I think it sends a message to everyone that the Buckeyes are ready to dive into the transfer portal, a little more than they were.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what I said. I mean that's what I indicated a while ago. I mean people judge the transfer portal way too early because really you need to judge the transfer portal a year later. Did these guys add depth where you needed it the most? And I think everybody Ohio State's gotten so far has done that. Some people keep, for example, poo-pooing the Tristan Gebbia transfer, the 7th-year quarterback from Oregon State. He adds instant depth, credibility, a guy who started games in the Power 5 conference. I don't know how you can argue with that. Victor Cutler might still be a little bit of a project. We'll see as that goes. But Jahad Carter, golly, like I said, turn on the video, man. That's what tells you the story. And Igbinosun, I really like the way he looks on video. And Igbinosun, excuse me. I really like the way he looks on video, and that, in my opinion, he will come in and immediately challenge. He will give some other guys in the depth chart there some sleepless nights, perhaps, as this thing goes along. That's what I think. If you can just add that to it, some agitation more than anything else to your depth in the transfer portal, you got something going on.
I think Ohio State was tipped off that we were going to talk about cornerback depth on the offseason report presented by Byers Auto because the Buckeyes were aggressive this weekend. They add Davison Igbinosun from Ole Miss, a transfer cornerback from Union, New Jersey. The Buckeyes are loving the Garden State right now in recruiting and just going at it in the transfer portal. New Jersey is becoming more and more of a factor for Ohio State. We'll talk about that with Matt Parker on the Lettermen Lounge.